Chapter 801. Nisideo's consciousness shrouded David, but David did not resist in the slightest, allowing Nisideo to investigate his own strength. After some exploration, Nisideo frowned slightly. David's strength was indeed the strength of the great master, but there was still an obscure aura in David. What kind of magic weapon? It is possible that David relies on this. You dare to propose to fight alone because of your mere strength as a great master. Are you impatient with your life, or do you feel that you have something to rely on? Nisideo smiled coldly. This sentence is to click on David and tell David that he already knows his secret. David said proudly, if you beat you, you don't need anything to rely on. If you have the ability, just use it. What a arrogant tone, today I will kill you with only one hand. After Nisideo finished speaking, the sleeve robe bulged like a long dragon, and then countless dots of light gathered towards Nisideo, and the whole person radiated dazzling light. Seeing this, David hurriedly activated his spiritual power and pinched his fingers quickly, and then a storm gradually condensed in front of David. Looking at the storm condensing in front of David, Nisideo raised his mouth, tiny trick of carving insects. After finishing speaking, Nisideo instantly shot out 2 spells from his sleeves, and then the light gathered on his body shone on the 2 spells, instantly turning into 2 giant dragons with golden light, moving towards David quickly. Seeing this scene, several elders of Su Chongsheng were shocked. The power of this technique is really powerful. Rumbling. The 2 golden dragons, under the waving of Nisideo's hands, also tossed up and down and went straight to David. David was not afraid at all, he waved a hand lightly, and then the storm in front of him moved towards the 2 golden dragons. Soon the 2 golden dragons were wrapped in the storm and spun together. Under the rapid rotation, the 2 golden dragons dissipated in an instant, turning into little spots of light again, and the storm gradually disappeared at the same time. At this moment, apart from leaving a mess between David and that Nisideo, neither of them has changed in the slightest, as if they have never fought. Are you capable of this? David said with a sneer in his eyes. Nisideo's face was extremely ugly, his eyes were fixed on David, and he gritted his teeth fiercely. I didn't expect you to be so proficient in magic, I underestimated you, and today I will show you my sleepy dragon formation. After Nisideo finished speaking, he slowly stretched out his 2 palms. Immediately after that, he chanted words in his mouth, spit out a simple and vast spell, and simultaneously printed out the Dharma seals with both hands, and these Dharma seals kept making explosions in the air. Soon, the top of the mountain seemed to be shaking, and then around David, cracks appeared one after another, and chains with the thickness of arms emerged from the cracks, and there were countless evil spirits condensed on the black chains. There are 9 chains in total, like 9 pythons with open mouths, ready to attack David at any time. At this moment, David frowned tightly together. Originally, David wanted to use the heart concentration technique to absorb the evil spirits in the trapped dragon formation, but looking at this situation, he was afraid that he would be beheaded by Nisideo before he could absorb everyone's evil spirits. It also exceeded David's imagination. Dragon-slaying sword. David's right hand, followed by a sword with rising flames, appeared in David's hand. Seeing the dragon-slaying sword, Nisideo's eyes suddenly widened. So this is what you rely on. Chapter 802. David did not speak, but raised the dragon-slaying sword in his hand high, and then slashed across the sky. The flames burning on the dragon-slaying sword suddenly became vigorous, and flames shot out from the dragon-slaying sword. The dragon sword let out a soft sound. The dragon-slaying sword and David had long since merged into one, and the tongues of flame that shot out just now were all the spiritual power in David's body, and a total of 9 tongues of flame went towards the 9 chains. After the fire tongue touched the chain, the evil energy on the chain instantly burned, and then a sound of breaking sounded. The 9 chains, burning with thick flames, all fell to the ground weakly like a boa constrictor with a broken head, then turned into powder and dissipated, and the cracks on the ground quickly closed. The dragon-slaying sword in David's hand pointed at Nisideo, and said coldly, "Your unique skills are nothing more than that. What skills do you have? Come on." Nisideo saw that he was in a desperate and difficult dragon formation, and was actually vulnerable in David's hands, and his face suddenly became extremely ugly. And that Ziahudun looked at David at the moment, his eyes were full of surprise. He didn't understand that in just a few days, David's strength seemed to have increased a lot. "Boy, you rely on the sword in your hand. I can't help you today, but I will seek revenge for you sooner or later." After Nisideo finished speaking, his figure suddenly retreated, he even retreated down the mountain and ran straight away. When Ziahudun saw this, he almost didn't scold him. He and Nisideo were on the same road. If Nisideo wanted to run away, he didn't tell himself. Did he want to leave him as a scapegoat? Ziahudun didn't dare to hesitate, and he turned around and ran away. It doesn't matter what kind of revenge he wanted to kill. It was important to save his life first. Seeing that Nisideo and Ziahudun turned around and ran away, there was no demeanor at all, which surprised Su Chongsheng and several elders. Just when Su Chongsheng and the others reported that they wanted to catch up, David stopped them. "Stop chasing!" David put away the dragon-slaying sword, his face pale without a trace of blood. "Guzu, are you all right?" Su Chongsheng asked hurriedly when he saw David's appearance. David shook his head, but then a mouthful of blood spurted out. Nisideo's technique is indeed very powerful. If David hadn't pushed hard just now and scared the guy away, it wouldn't end well for a while. David was helped down the mountain by Su Chongsheng and the others. Originally, David planned to leave today, but now it seems that he can only rest in Medicine God Valley for a day. The next day, no matter how Su Chongsheng and the others persuaded them, David insisted on leaving Yaishan Valley, otherwise he would not be able to arrive at Wuming Island on July 15. After walking out of Yaishan Valley, David directly bought a plane ticket to Nanhua City. If he wanted to go to Wuming Island, he had to take a boat from here, because there are only boats going to Wuming Island here. When David flew to Nanhua City, it was already night. After booking the ferry ticket in advance, David found a hotel to rest and planned to board the ship to Wuming Island early tomorrow morning. Just when David was having dinner at the hotel, he found that the hotel was surprisingly busy. There were many guests coming and going, and these guests all exuded aura, obviously all of them were warriors. David was very strange. This is not a big deal. Nanhua City, which is not small and not well known, suddenly attracted so many warriors. Because the room was already full, David had no choice but to find the hotel insider at a high price, asking the insider to find a room. "Brother, why are there so many people in your hotel?" David asked the waiter in the hotel he was looking for. "I don't know. I don't know what happened this year. We will gather so many people here. It seems that they are all going to see? I don't know what to do." The waiter shook his head and said. Chapter 803. David looked at the waiter and knew that the waiter was just an ordinary person, and he definitely didn't know what these people were doing, so he took out a stack of money from his pocket, a full $1,000, and stuffed it into the waiter's hand. "Brother, help me find a room, I'll stay for one night and leave." David didn't want to go around looking for a hotel anymore. If this hotel didn't have a room, it would be the same for other hotels. The waiter looked embarrassed. We really don't have a room here, and our manager can't find a vacant room now." Although the waiter said this, his eyes were fixed on the money in his hand, and he obviously wanted to earn the 1,000 yuan given by David. Seeing this, David hurriedly took out another stack of money, this time there should be thousands of dollars, and handed it directly to the waiter. "Brother, help," David said with a smile. The waiter looked at the thick stack of banknotes in his hand, his eyes were straight, and finally he gritted his teeth and said, "Sir, there is indeed no room, but if you don't dislike it, you can sleep in our dormitory." Don't worry, you are alone. I'll drive out all the colleagues in the dormitory. Okay, just have a place to sleep. David smiled slightly. Brother, do you have anything to eat? Help me get something to eat. Yes, you sit for a while now, I'll go get ready. The waiter hurried to prepare food. It seems that being rich is really helpful. Seeing the happy look of the waiter, David found a corner and sat down. At this time, in the hotel restaurant, many people came to eat one after another, and at a table not far from David, David actually found an acquaintance. Qin Xiaotian of the Qin family in Kyoto. Since David killed Qin Xiaolin, he has never seen anyone from the Qin family, nor has he seen the Qin family seek revenge for him. Qin Xiaotian was sitting at the table with a person who looked very similar to him, and behind them, there were several servants of the Qin family, all of them were the strength of the great master. David turned his head slowly to prevent Qin Xiaotian from seeing him, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. David pricked up his ears and listened carefully to Qin Xiaoshan's conversation. With David's current strength, even if they were separated by dozens of meters, he could clearly hear the content of the two people's quiet conversation. Second brother, what kind of island are you talking about? Is it really so magical? Is there really a dragon on it? I've never seen a real dragon when I'm so old. Isn't this all a legend? At this time, Qin Xiaoshan's voice clearly entered David's ears. Only then did David know that the person sitting with Qin Xiaotian was Qin Xiaoshan's second brother Qin Xiaoxian. I don't know if there are real dragons, but there must be rare beasts on Suolong Island. If I can get a beast pill, it will be very helpful for me to practice. Qin Xiaoxian's eyes were full of anticipation. Second brother, tell me about the Qin family's land. I heard that the Qin family there are all immortals and can fly into the sky. Are you now an immortal? Qin Xiaotian looked like a primary school student, and hoped that Qin Xiaoxian would tell him about the Qin family land. Qin Xiaoxian's eyes narrowed slightly. How many times have I told you, don't inquire about things you shouldn't inquire about, you know too much, it's not good for you. Seeing that his second brother was angry, Qin Xiaotian nodded hurriedly, I see. After the conversation between the two was silent for a while, Qin Xiaotian spoke again, second brother, eldest brother was killed by that David, what are you going to Suolong Island this time? Can you kill that David and mention eldest brother if you get the beast pill? Revenge. Humph, to kill him, why use the beast pill, but this time I went to Suolong Island because of the old patriarch's intention. I must complete the explanation of the old patriarch before I can go to David to take revenge. Qin Xiaoxian snorted coldly, obviously ignoring David. Chapter 804. Yes, yes. The second brother is a fairy now, how can David's fellow be able to compare? The second brother wants to kill him, just move his fingers, let David live for a few more days. Qin Xiaotian touted to his second brother. At this moment, a group of people suddenly broke in, headed by a young man, who glanced at everyone with a proud look. Afterwards, one of the men behind the young man stepped forward, cleared his throat and said, Young Master Xuan Yuan is here, everyone will leave for me, we have taken care of this place. Listening to that person's tone, it was like the emperor was on a tour in ancient times, and everyone else had to dodge. Looking at the scene in front of them, everyone sneered. After all, the people who ate here were all warriors, and there were no ordinary people, including some big families. How could they be scared away by just a few words? Although many people scoffed, Qin Xiaoxian's expression suddenly changed slightly. Let's go, Qin Xiaoxian said to Qin Xiaotian. Second brother, what are you afraid of? Who is this guy? Qin Xiaotian looked at Qin Xiaoxian in confusion. How can the Qin family be considered a big family in Kyoto, and Qin Xiaoxian has entered the Qin family's land to practice immortality, how can he be afraid of a Xuan Yuan son? What's more, Qin Xiaotian had never heard of the Xuan Yuan family, and there seemed to be no such a powerful family in Kyoto. Shut up, Qin Xiaoxian glared at Qin Xiaotian, then got up and walked out. Seeing this, Qin Xiaotian could only leave with someone. When Qin Xiaoxian passed by the young man couldn't help but glance at Qin Xiaoxian. Although the Qin family left, the others remained motionless and had no intention of leaving. Seeing this, the young man's face turned slightly cold, and the subordinate who had just stood up, his breath exploded in an instant, and the entire restaurant seemed to be plunged into an ice cave, and people shivered. This time, many people's expressions changed greatly, and they got up and left. Just this breath, they knew that the other party was a master, and it was not something they could provoke. Wu Zong. After David felt this breath, he couldn't help being a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party's servant turned out to be in the realm of Wu Zong. You must know that if you have cultivated to the realm of Wu Zong, which one is not the overlord of one side, how could he be a subordinate? Soon, everyone in the restaurant fled one after another, leaving only David sitting alone in the corner, quietly waiting for his meal. When the other party saw that David didn't leave, his eyes widened, and a breath struck David instantly. David lowered his head slightly, and did not seem to notice that the other party had launched an attack on him. But just after the breath reached David, David's whole body seemed to have an extra barrier out of thin air, blocking the breath directly. Whoa, whoa! The blocked breath hit the table next to him, instantly shattering the table. This time, the other party was immediately stunned, his eyes looked at David incredulously, and that young Master Xuan Yuan's eyes were also slightly condensed. "Sir, your meal is here." At this time, the waiter who had just received David's money came over with the food, which was very rich. However, seeing the restaurant that was still lively just now, all of them have left at this moment, and there are only a few people left, and the waiter is stunned. "Put things down, you can leave," David said lightly to the waiter. "Oh, well, well." The waiter looked at the table and chairs scattered on the ground and nodded hastily. Working here, he knew that people would often fight and cause trouble here. Looking at the scene in front of him, it seemed that someone was fighting here again. In order to avoid getting into trouble, the waiter hurriedly put down the food and left in a hurry. Chapter 805. David picked up his chopsticks and started eating slowly, without even looking at the people beside him. The guy who had just shot David had a cold expression on his face, clenched his fists with both hands, and was about to attack David again, but he was stopped by that young Master Xuan Yuan with a wave of his hand. After looking at David, young Master Xuan Yuan found a place to sit down, and then someone went to prepare meals. A few minutes later, when David was full, he stood up and walked out of the restaurant, never looking at those people from beginning to end. "Son!" The guy who just shot, saw David walking out so arrogantly, and looked at the young Master Xuan Yuan with a face full of injustice. Young Master Xuan Yuan waved his hand, just looked at David's back, but didn't say anything. After David walked out of the restaurant, he originally planned to find the waiter and ask him to take him to their dormitory, then take a good rest and recharge his batteries. However, after looking around, David didn't find the guy. He probably hid because he saw someone was about to fight. David had no choice but to walk out of the hotel and stroll around the streets of Nanhua City. Although Nanhua City is not large in size, it is close to the sea, and you can see the endless sea from here. There are also rows of sea view villas by the sea. Even though it is night, there are still many people playing on the beach by the sea. David walked slowly towards the seaside. This was the first time he had seen the sea with his own eyes. The boundless sea set off people so insignificant. In front of the sea, no matter how strong he was, it was still insignificant. On the sea, the lighthouse in the distance was turning, and the light pointed out the direction for passing ships, but looking at the lighthouse in the distance, David himself was a little confused, he didn't know where his way was or where he was heading. Now David is suddenly a little scared. He is afraid of knowing his life experience. Even if he does, what can he do? Slowly withdrawing his gaze, David shook his head, preventing himself from thinking about messy things. Now he can only take one step at a time. David was walking slowly on the beach. From time to time, beautiful girls in bikinis ran past him. These girls were all fair-skinned and had a particularly good figure. David just raised his eyes and looked away. Although these girls are beautiful, compared with Sonia, they are too far behind. In terms of temperament, these girls lose. How to say Sonia grew up in a wealthy family, and the temperament of a noble lady on her body is not something that every girl has. There is also the kind of heroic and sassy temperament on Gullinger, which very few girls have. After all, Gullinger used to be a detective of the law enforcement pavilion. If she wears a uniform and her perfect figure, it is fantastic. Unconsciously, David's mind was thinking of Sonia and the others. When thinking of Gullinger, the picture of Gullinger's naked body suddenly popped up in David's mind, although David was holding Guling at the time. Son, I didn't think about it in my heart, but when I think about it at this time, David actually found that he had a reaction. After all, David is also a normal man, and he also has a lot of emotions, so it is normal to have a reaction when he thinks of those pictures. Hey, I don't know where Uncle Long took them. David sighed slightly. He hadn't contacted Sonia and the others for many days, but David still missed it. Just when David sighed and was about to leave from the beach, a few figures suddenly appeared in front of him, which made David stunned. I saw the girls in front of them, wearing swimsuits, sparring on the beach, and having a good time. Many men and women around them focused their attention on the girls. Chapter 806. When David also put his eyes on a few girls, he was stunned for a moment, because these girls were none other than Sonia and the others. I saw Sonia, Gullinger, Wumeyer, and Xiaoru, all wearing swimsuits, fighting each other, the four of them in pairs, constantly splashing seawater on each other. David was stunned on the spot. He didn't understand, how could Sonia and the others come to this place, and that Xiaoru, how could she also appear here? A few beauties, are you interested in driving a speedboat together and blowing the sea breeze? At this time, a boy wearing sunglasses and dressed in a fashion, walked towards Sonia and the others, and asked flatteringly. Sonia and the others looked at the boy and ignored him, because on this day, I don't know how many boys started chatting with them. Seeing that no one cared about him, the boy opened his mouth again and said, "Several beauties, my name is Wang Shuo, the richest man in Nanhua City. Wang Jianlin is my father. Have you seen a few speedboats not far away? That's all me." Wang Shuo brought out his identity as the son of the richest man, because as long as he revealed his identity, no matter how reserved the girls were, they would show fanaticism towards him. It's a pity that Sonia and the others, as if they didn't hear it, were still playing and sparring, and no one paid any attention to him. This time, Wang Shuo was a little embarrassed and at a loss for a while. "Wang Gongzi, since people ignore you, why are you sticking your face with a cold butt? Just a few of our sisters will accompany you." Beside Wang Shuo, a girl with a charming dress and a good figure said to Wang Shuo. Snapped. Wang Shuo slapped the girl casually. You are so fucking hot and cold A55, there is no woman in Nanhua City that Wang Shuo can't deal with." After Wang Shuo finished speaking, he walked towards Sonia angrily. The girl who had just been beaten was too frightened to say a word, she could only cover her face, tears rolling in her eyes. At this moment, Sonia is wearing a swimsuit, and her snow-white skin is even more pure and flawless under the moonlight. This time Wang Shuo didn't speak, but directly reached out and grabbed Sonia's wrist. Sonia was startled and instinctively wanted to retreat, but was caught by Wang Shuo. "This little hand is really tender." Wang Shuo grabbed Sonia's hand and said with a wicked smile. Seeing that Sonia was being harassed, Gullinger and the others hurried over, while David, who was not far away, was furious and ran over with a quick walk. But at this moment, Sonia's eyes turned cold, and then she grabbed Wang Shuo's collar with one hand, and then slammed her back, only to throw Wang Shuo onto the beach. This time, Wang Shuo was knocked out of breath and kept coughing. Master! Wang Shuo fell to the ground, and 3 big men came running from not far away, and helped Wang Shuo up nervously. David, who originally wanted to help in the past, suddenly stopped and looked at Sonia in shock. He didn't expect that Sonia would be able to kung fu after not seeing each other for a few days, and after seeing Sonia's shot just now, it seemed that he was still very powerful. David stood on the spot without stepping forward. He planned to see how Sonia and the others handled this matter. At this time, Gu Linger and the others had already run to Sonia's side, and then looked at Wang Shuo and several of his subordinates. Especially Gu Linger, his eyes were full of murderous intent, and he wanted to kill these guys. Linger, Uncle Long explained, but don't let us cause trouble, don't kill yourself, wait until David arrives. Feeling the murderous aura on Gu Linger, Sonia hurriedly persuaded her. Chapter 807. Hearing what Sonia said, the murderous aura on Gu Linger slowly dissipated. Wang Shuo looked at Sonia, his eyes full of ruthlessness. Damn, dare to hit me, I didn't expect to be a hot girl, today I will play you to the death. Do it. After Wang Shuo finished speaking, he waved his hand and let the 3 strong men go towards Sonia. David, who was not far away, saw that these 3 strong men were just ordinary people, not even warriors. They didn't have any breath on their bodies, so they didn't move. After all, with Gu Linger there, these 3 people were not opponents at all. Sonia will be fine. Look at me, I happened to practice with these 3 guys. As Sonia said, she went straight to meet the 3 strong men. Suddenly, he punched out. Bang! With a muffled sound, a strong man was knocked out by Sonia's punch, and his huge body flew out more than 10 meters before he fell heavily on the beach. This time, the other 2 big men were frightened, and Wang Shuo, who looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief, was stunned. He never thought that Sonia, a seemingly thin girl, had such strength. Big! David, who was not far away, was also stunned. Just now, Sonia's punch was comparable to that of an internal force warrior. You must know that Sonia was just an ordinary girl a few days ago. Inner strength? It seems that Sonia was also frightened by her own punch. After a long time, she said excitedly to Gu Linger, Linger, is this shot by me? Why is it so powerful? Gu Linger smiled, Sonia, your current strength is comparable to that of an internal force martial artist. If you hit these ordinary people, you will definitely be knocked out with one punch. You have to take some strength, or you will kill them with one punch. Sonia nodded, then looked at the remaining 2 strong men, as if seeing prey. When the 2 strong men saw Sonia's eyes, they suddenly felt bad, turned around and ran away, ignoring their young master Wang at all. Seeing his bodyguard run away, Wang Shuo shuddered in fright, turned and ran away in a hurry. At this moment, Sonia in his eyes is no longer a swimsuit beauty, but a scary monster. Hey, why did you run away? I haven't enjoyed it yet, it's so boring. Seeing Wang Shuo and the 2 bodyguards running away, Sonia said with a displeased face. Does it feel good to beat someone? Gu Linger asked with a smile and patted Sonia on the shoulder. Well, it's so cool, I really want to find someone who doesn't have long eyes, and beat him up. Sonia was still immersed in the feeling of beating someone just now, nodded and said. Sonia had just finished speaking when suddenly a hand was placed on Sonia's shoulder. That hand not only rested on Sonia's shoulder, but also touched it gently. Sonia frowned, then turned around and swung a punch towards the back. But when Sonia turned around, her fist stopped suddenly, because she saw David's face and was grinning at herself. David! Seeing that it was David, Sonia threw herself into David's arms and asked David to hug her. Sonia's excited look infected David, and David directly hugged Sonia and turned around twice. Because Sonia was wearing a swimsuit, David hugged Sonia and felt a softness on his chest, which was very comfortable. Seeing David holding Sonia in a circle, Gulinger on the side showed a smile that was not a smile. David put Sonia down, looked at Gulinger and said with a slight smile, "Linger is wearing a swimsuit and has a good figure. Would you like to hug you twice?" Chapter 808. Who asked you to hold it? Gulinger gave David a blank look. At this time, Wu Meyer and Xiaoru came over, and both of them were wearing swimsuits. Although Xiaoru was younger, but they hadn't seen each other for a few months, David found that Xiaoru had grown up a lot. "Brother Chen." After Xiaoru saw David, she shouted with joy. "Xiaoru, why are you with them? What about Daoist Wu Vai?" David was very strange. At that time, the Laming sect was destroyed, and Xiaoru's father was killed. In the end, David took revenge, and then Wu Vai Taoist took Xiaoru away. "Why is Xiaoru here again? Uncle Wu Vai has retreated, I am." "Okay, let's go back and talk about something, there are too many people here." Sonia pulled David, and Xiaoru closed her mouth when she saw this. At this time, everyone on the beach saw that David was surrounded by 4 girls and left together. "David, where is my sister? Aren't you with her? Isn't she still staying in Miao village?" On the way, Wu Meyer asked David. "Your sister has left the Miao village, and your parents were indeed killed by that Miao king." David told Wu Meyer what happened in Miao village, and also told about her parents' grievances with King Miao. Along the way, Wu Meyer listened, but didn't speak. She didn't know what she was thinking, but she didn't see any sadness on her face. "What feelings?" David followed Sonia and the others to a hotel, and this hotel was the one David had just visited, but Sonia and the others came early, so they booked a room. After taking David upstairs, Sonia knocked on a door. When the door opened, David found that it was Long Wu who opened the door, and there was another person behind Long Wu, which made David stunned. "Old, Irvin." David's eyes were wide open, his face full of incredulity. How could he never have imagined, how could the Irvin be here? Since his release from prison, David has never seen Irvin again. Once, David wanted to go to the prison to find Irvin, and even tried to get rid of the old Irvin through relationships, but there was no such person in the prison. David was still puzzled at that time. Now I don't want the Irvin to appear here, and obviously he is with Sonia and the others. "Come in and talk." Long Wu shouted, which awakened the shocked David and hurriedly walked into the room. Looking at the room full of people, David was stunned for a long time, and now he urgently needs someone to explain to him. The Irvin said to Xiaoru, "Xiaoru, take the others to the next room, I have something to talk about with David." Xiaoru nodded, and then took Sonia and Gulinger to the next room. Just after Sonia and the others left, Irvin and Long Wu suddenly knelt in front of David. This sudden change directly confused David, and hurriedly supported Long Wu and Irvin. "Uncle Long, Irvin, what are you doing?" David looked puzzled. "Little master, it's time for me to tell you about your own background." Irvin looked at David, his eyes suddenly filled with tears, and slowly followed David about his life experience. David listened quietly, although he had a little preparation in his heart, but when he heard the old master say it, David was still shocked. It turned out that David himself expected it well. He has the blood of the Long family. His mother is the second princess of the Long family, Long Ruotong, and the Irvin is the housekeeper of the Long family, and Long Wu is the bodyguard of David's mother. Chapter 809. The Long family is a hidden wealthy family. 80% of the family members are warriors, and many people even set foot on the path of cultivating immortals. As the second princess of the Long family, David's mother received the best education since childhood. Because David's mother, Long Ruotong, is talented and smart, her strength has grown rapidly, and the head of the Long family also likes David's mother very much. However, with the growth of age, David's mother, Long Ruotong, was in her 20s, and she was so excited that she met a man outside. Later, the two married, and Long Ruotong became pregnant. But he didn't want that man to disappear after Long Ruotong became pregnant. Long Ruotong gave birth to David alone with a big belly. David's grandfather was furious when he found out that his daughter was pregnant out of wedlock and gave birth to the child, and the man ran away, and sent someone to bring David's mother back to the Long family. However, looking at his beloved daughter and his chubby grandson, Grandpa David did not punish Long Ruotong, but because of his anger at the beginning, he was sick and bedridden. But when David's grandfather was bedridden, Long Jingguo, David's mother's eldest brother, secretly poisoned his father, wanting to let David's grandfather die early so that he could inherit everything from the Long family. However, it was discovered by David's mother in the end. Unfortunately, it was too late. David's grandfather had already become poisoned. At the last moment, he handed over the palm print of the Long family to David's mother. David's mother took David, glanced at her father, and ran out of Long's house, but was soon discovered by Long Jingguo, and then slandered David's mother for poisoning her father and sent someone to arrest Chen Peace to his mother. Among those who arrested David's mother back then were Irvin and Long Wu. They chased for 2 days and 2 nights and surrounded David's mother near Horindal. Later, David's mother was captured and returned to Long's house. And David was thrown to the side of the road by his mother long ago, and then he escaped the fate of being brought back to the Long family. After David's mother was caught, although Long Jingguo got the palm print of the Long family, he did not let David's mother go, and he was tortured every day, as if he wanted to know something from David's mother's mouth. Old Irvin and Long Wu didn't know exactly what Long Jingguo wanted to know, but more than 20 years later, Long Jingguo had not given up and was still torturing his own younger sister. Besides, David's mother was still tormented. It was time for Irvin to stop suddenly, and then his voice choked and he couldn't cry, and Long Wu also burst into tears with remorse on his face. If we let second miss go back then, she wouldn't be tortured like this now. Irvin burst into tears, his face full of tears. David's hands were tightly clasped together. Although he had never met his mother, David was still trembling with anger when he heard this. "Then how did you find me?" David looked at the old Irvin and asked. At this moment, David has a bit of hatred in his eyes. As Irvin said, if they hadn't captured their mother back then, how could her mother have been tortured like this? Old Irvin looked at the hatred in David's eyes and sighed heavily. "For so many years, I have been wondering why the second lady wanted to poison the master. I didn't believe it was true, so 3 years ago, I secretly went to jail. Look at her from the second lady's place. It was the second lady who told me the truth. It turned out that the master was poisoned by the evil son of Long Jingguo, and the second lady also told me the place where you lost you and wanted me to find you. To see if you are still alive." The old Irvin took a breath, wiped a handful of tears and continued, "The condensed heart formula I passed on to you, and the dragon ring you are wearing are not mine. I heard from the second lady, it was left by your father. It was a token of love for the second lady at that time." Chapter 810. Then who is my father? Why is my mother still locked up? What does the Long family want to know from my mother? David excitedly grabbed the old Irvin's shoulder and asked. David wanted to know who this irresponsible father was. Thinking of what his mother had suffered, David hated this irresponsible man to death. Irvin shook his head. "I don't know, the second lady doesn't know your father's true identity. As for what the Long family wanted to know from the second lady didn't say anything. Later, I went to Horindal area to inquire. With your current status, you should know what happened next. Why are you so sure that the lost child will be me?" David was puzzled, why the old Irvin was so sure. "You have the blood of the dragon family on you, and I can see that these are not wrong." After Irvin said these few words, he suddenly coughed violently, and his face became very ugly. "Butler Long." Seeing this, Long Wu hurriedly supported the Irvin and slapped the Irvin on the back. "Old Irvin, what's the matter with you? Let me see for you. Although David hated the Irvin a little, he also asked with concern when he saw the Irvin like this. The Irvin waved his hand and sat on the chair himself. At this moment, the Irvin seemed to be a lot older, and his eyes became dull. David was a little strange. This Irvin changed, and now he looked like an old man who was about to die. Long Wu looked at the Irvin, his eyes were full of distress, it seemed that he knew what happened to the Irvin. Little young master, you already know your background, and my task can be considered completed, but because I gave the second lady hope to persevere, I disclosed the news of finding you, and now the people of the Long family are looking for you everywhere. Fortunately, they only know that you are still alive, but they don't know your current identity, so you are still safe for the time being. But, cough, cough. Before the old Irvin could finish speaking, he coughed violently again. Butler Long, let me tell you, Long Wu let the Irvin rest, and he followed David. Little master, although you are safe for the time being, the Long family will know your identity sooner or later, and it is imperative that you lock it up. Long Dao got Long Jing, and only after obtaining Long Jing can you hope to fight with the Long family. You once asked me that the spiritual power of heaven and earth is exhausted, how do other immortal cultivators get spiritual energy, and now I can tell you, Mr. Some cultivators get their aura from spar, and some people get dragon crystal and absorb a steady stream of aura from dragon crystal. After swallowing a dragon crystal, the dragon crystal will continue to emit spiritual energy, but this dragon crystal is extremely rare. As far as I know, there are not many people who get the dragon crystal. Many people rely on the crystal, and this crystal is very rare. It's similar to the spirit stone, but the spiritual energy contained in the spar is thousands of times as much as that spirit stone. After Long Wu said this, David realized that there are still crystal stones in Long Jing. I can't believe that there are still these things with spiritual energy. It seems that these things are far more precious than those spiritual stones and herbs. Many. In this world, there are many things that immortal cultivators can obtain spiritual energy. In addition to dragon crystals, spar, and beast pills, you must know that there are a large number of animals in many inaccessible places, and these animals have grown for many years. Beast pills will be produced, and these beast pills are also precious resources to help cultivation. Long Wu continued to follow David. Is this dragon crystal considered a dragon's beast pill? David asked. Long Wu was stunned for a moment, and after pondering for a while, he nodded, it should be counted.